Beyond Reach podcast gives the voice to brands, athletes, organizations in the outdoor space industry. Through open conversation, you're going to discover their stories, their successes and challenges, but also their vision. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome, Maddi, in the podcast. I'm very happy to have you, as I think that people need to know more about your story, what you do, and I really hope that this is going to help people to get into stand-up paddleboard. So, can you present yourself and a bit of like your backstory and how you felt into paddleboard?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, Maxime, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me on the show today. I really appreciate you just even giving me a platform to share my story and share my passion for a sport that I love. And I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Maddi Leblanc. I am from Welland, Ontario, Canada. I am 26 years old and I am a professional stand-up paddleboarding athlete. I've been racing, I believe, for about 7 years now, since 2016. And I love the sport with all of my heart and all of my soul. I spend like almost every waking minute thinking about it every day. I just love that every time I get to go out for a paddle, it's never the same. Like the wind is never the same. The water is never the same. You can be paddling in flat water or waves or rivers. Like there's so much diversity in stand-up paddleboarding. And I think that's what just keeps me motivated and keeps me happy to always be participating in it. And just spending time in Mother Nature. So it makes me very happy.
And so how did you felt into it, into paddleboard?
Yeah, I got into it when I was about 10 years old. That's when I was first introduced to the sport. It was 2007 when I saw these two men stand up paddleboarding on Lake Huron. My family and I, we were up north at a cottage in Sable Beach, which is pretty cool because that's not far from where you are in Owen Sound. And I just watched these men paddle and thought, wow, that is really cool. What are those things? I had never seen a craft like them whatsoever. And my mom said to me, she's like, Maddi, when they come back in, you should go up to them and ask what those things are. Because my parents had no idea either. They looked and they were just as shocked as me.
Yeah, it was more for your parents than for you, in fact.
Right? Yeah. Sometimes I think the more I tell this story, that's what I come to the conclusion of maybe they just wanted to know more than me, but. My mom, though, it was funny because I'll never forget. She said, she's like, Maddi, you'll regret it if you don't go up to them and ask what those things are. Because I was really shy. When she said that to me, I didn't want to go up to them. That wasn't my first instinct reaction. Yeah. And she said, you will regret it if you don't. And so they come in from their paddle. I asked them, I said, hey, what are those things? And they're like, oh, they're stand-up paddle boards. Would you like to try? And I just was like, wow, okay, yeah, sure. So I got to hop on their boards that day. And I'll never forget that view and that feeling of being on the board. I was always such a small kid growing up. So having that perspective and seeing the horizon and then looking down and seeing how just clear and blue the water was. I mean, as you know too, Lake Huron is just super stunning in the summer. It's spectacular. And so having that feeling was something that I wanted to chase for the rest of my life. And knowing that, okay, if I just take a risk and ask questions and not be afraid to put myself out there, then hopefully that leads me to more successes down the road. Yeah. So that moment taught me a lot, getting into it. And so after that, I begged my parents for a stand-up paddleboard. And they said to me, they're like, all right, well, here's the thing, because growing up, I did so many other sports and we tried something and then I wanted to do the next thing. And so they were like, all right, we don't want to buy this very expensive board and you just be into it for a few months and then leave. So you have to show us that you're dedicated and you really want this. So we'll make a deal with you that for Christmas it'll be like your only present, but you have to pay for half, and like that's it, that's the deal. And so I said to them, okay, you know, like when you're so young, you're like, I'll do it, I'll gladly take that deal, like that's fine.
Why not?
And so I worked really hard. Like I babysat like my cousins for like a few summers, and like saved up all my babysitting money, because yeah, like what other job do you have when you're so young? And in December of 2012, that's when I was able to get my first paddleboard. But I definitely wasn't into winter paddling at that time, like, because I got the board around Christmas, but I had, you know, no idea how to paddle safely in the winter. So I didn't take my board out until the spring of 2013.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into it.
And so Christmas, so you said Christmas 2013, you said?
Christmas of 2012, and
2012.
then I was able to first paddle the board in the spring of 2013.
Yeah, and you realized at that time that you needed to have a swimsuit to paddleboard in Canada.
Yes, that's right. Like even in the spring when it was warm, it's so funny. I tell people that like technically my first paddle ever was like a downwind because I had taken the board out with my parents on the Welland Canal, where I live here. And I had just bought like $60 like wetsuit from Canadian Tire, you know, because I didn't know any better. I was like, I don't know what to wear because the water's still cold, but the air's warm. And I go out and the wind was just so strong. And my dad's like yelling at me from the shore. He's like, paddle into the wind. And I'm like looking back at him like, this is so hard. Like, I can't do it. So he looks at me and he's like, okay, just paddle like down the canal and I'll go pick you up at the Notre Dame boathouse, which is like just another launch spot. Like it's another dock that we have here. And I was like, okay. And then, so that's what I did. I paddled downwind and I was like, wow, this is actually really fun. And,
yeah, that's
and then
cool.
my dad picked me up like 5 kilometers later. And yeah, it was a time. So we've come a long way since that very first paddle.
And so how did you get from that to your first competition, basically?
Yeah, that's a great question. I pretty much started like leisurely paddling, and then in 2012, like just before I got my paddleboard, actually, in 2011, I had lost 2 friends of mine to cancer. So one of them, her name was Julia Turner. She was like one of my really good high school friends. She passed away due to glioblastoma, which is like a really aggressive form of a brain tumor.
Okay.
And then my next door neighbor, Lynn Lambert, she was about 37 years old, and she passed away that same year as well to a rare form of skin cancer.
Okay.
And losing them in that year was just absolutely horrendous. Like I think to this day, I still don't even really have words for that time of my life and that feeling of losing 2 people so young, because I was also 15 trying to process these deaths and thinking to myself like, wait, hold on, like people are supposed to live until they're like old and wrinkly and gray, you know, like how can someone just kind of pass away so suddenly and so soon? And paddleboarding coming like a year later really came at a good time in my life. It came at a time when I needed a fresh start and I needed something to like light up a fire in me again and give life some new meaning. Yeah. And so when I took my paddleboard out for that first time on the Welland Canal in 2013, I was like, wow, this is really fun. This is really cool. Like maybe I should do something with this to give back to my friends that I just lost. And so I kept kind of sitting on the idea. And then the more I paddled, the more I kind of thought about it. And I was like, hey, you know what? Like in Canada, we look up to Terry Fox. He's a guy who ran across our country to like raise funds for cancer research. And maybe I can do something similar, but instead of running, because I hate running and I suck at running, I was like, maybe I can paddle. Like I'll paddle down the Welland Canal to raise funds for my friends that I lost to cancer. And so in 2014, I launched an event called On Board. And
so you were,
that's what I did.
So you were 17 at that time?
Yeah, I would have been, 2014, I would have been 16, like turning
Yeah.
17, I believe, that year.
Pretty young for your
I feel
first
like
events.
old though.
Maddi Leblanc, event organizer at 16.
Yeah, yeah, really. Like people, it was funny. Like people could not believe what I was doing. They're like, "Wait, what?" And like, even me just like approaching like sponsors and trying to like ask people like, "Hey, come be a part of this event." And like, I got a lot of rejections in the beginning because I think just a lot of people were like, "Hey, what is this like 16-year-old doing? Like, whatever. She doesn't know any better. Like, whatever, And I didn't care because I was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, but I just want to do a good thing here. And so we've come so far from that, and it's actually pretty cool. Like the more I reflect and think back to that time, but yeah, it was a very special day. Like, I paddled 10 kilometers by myself down the Long Canal, and we raised over $2,000, I think, that first year of running on board. And then we ran it for another 5 or 6 years after that.
Okay.
So it was like an annual event for quite a long time. And we just kept raising more funds every year. And I think in onboard, like one of its last years, we raised like easily like $13,000, like just over 10 grand, which was fantastic. Cool. I was like, wow, this is so cool, and we get to like keep Julia and Lynn's like memory alive. And I always felt like that was just super special. I never cared about how much I raised every year. It was always more so like the fact that we get to do something special to remember very special people. And so the second year, 2015, of running on board, I had an event sponsor come up to me and approach me, and they said, "Hey, did you know you can race stand-up paddleboards as well?" Because I was just using like an all-around leisure board too in those early years. And so I looked at them and I was like, "Wait, what? Like you can race paddleboards? Are you serious?" And me and my competitive brain was like, "Ooh, this is gonna be fun." So they were like, "Yeah, like try out our race board." And so the second year I ran on board, that's what I did. Like I paddled a race board instead of an all-around board. And I loved the feeling of it. I was like, ooh, you get to go like a lot faster. It's more aerodynamic. It's like, it's a little bit tippier, but it's fun. And so that got me hooked onto like trying a race board.
Okay.
And so 2016 was like the first year that I signed up for a race and loved it and have not looked back ever since.
Oh my gosh. And where was it? It was next to your place?
Funny enough, no. Like my first race ever was with the Ontario SUP series in Barrie on Lake Simcoe in Ontario.
That's pretty good. Like that's pretty for me. It's pretty big. Like for first competition.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like my mom and I still laugh about it to this day. Like she drove me up to that first race. Like we went to that together, and I was just super excited. And Barrie on a Saturday in the summer, traffic's not great. So I think it took us like 3 hours to get there.
Yeah.
And the race itself, I signed up for like the novice division because it was my first race ever and I didn't know what I was doing. And the course itself was a 1 kilometer just square loop. And so I did it and I completed the course in 11 minutes and I came in second place.
Okay.
So I come in and I'm running on the beach with my paddle and I'm so happy. And I look at my mom and I'm like, "Mom, look, I came in second place." And she like literally looked at me and said, "Maddi, are you serious? Like we just drove 3 hours for an 11-minute race. Like that's it." And so we just started laughing. And I always still tell her now to this day though, like, hey, that 11 minutes, that was enough to change the rest of my life. So here we are.
That's cool. And I also so you also participated to a competition and represented Canada actually. Can you talk about it a little bit? How did you get that contact maybe, and how did it go?
Yeah, definitely. I after I guess I caught the racing bug, I went super ham with it. Like I competed in every possible race that I could, and I was so obsessed with the idea of progression and just getting better and better and better every year. So I believe in 2017, so only a year after like being with the Ontario SUP series, I ended up winning like the overall open female category with the Ontario SUP Series. And then a year after that, in 2018, I jumped into the elite category because I won the Open. So going into the elite, I then actually won also the elite women's Open title that year. And that was really special for me because it was my first year in the elite. And that basically meant I was just doing longer distances. I was exposed to more elements. So I was paddling in more like rough conditions and not just like sticking to flat water. And winning that title just meant a lot to me, thinking like, wow, this is my first year in this like more serious category. And I must be pretty decent because I just won like overall. And so it was that year that I was actually also finishing my undergraduate degree at the University of Waterloo.
Yeah.
And so I had a friend who was actually already on Team Canada for stand-up paddleboarding for the ISA World Championships that were happening in Henan, China, at the end of November / like early December that year. And so she called me up and she says, hey, Maddi, like one of our team members, her name's Lina, like she can't come to China anymore. She can't come and compete. So we need to like fill her spot. Would you like to take it? And I thought to myself, wow, like, okay, this must be like a product of all of my hard work over the past couple of years and winning the elite title made me feel like, okay, yeah, like maybe we are worthy enough to like represent Canada. Like this is pretty cool. And, but I remember though at the time too, like just thinking that China and like everything with SUP is self-funded. So as honored and as stoked as I was, I had to turn down the proposal because I just knew like with school and finances, I'm like, there's no way, like I can't pull this off. I can't do this. So that was like September of 2018. And then like literally exactly a month later, my friend calls me up again and she's like, okay, Maddi, she's like, we still haven't filled the spot and like, you need to come and one of our other team members is going to pay for your flight. So like, just book your classes off, like do whatever you need to do, like get your butt over here. You're coming to China. And I was like, oh my God, okay. Like I'll never forget. I like threw my textbooks across the room. I was like, okay, bye school, I'm leaving, I'm going to China. And so I was 3 weeks out from the Worlds. And that was my first time representing Team Canada on an international stage. And it was very humbling. I learned so much, you know, like about what being an elite athlete looks like and how to train better, how to be smart, you know, sleep, recovery, nutrition, like everything. It just opened up my eyes to this whole new world of like stand-up paddling. And so I came back home and was like, okay, I got to get serious about this now. And that's how just the rest of my life has progressed. Like since 2018, I've been chasing that and I got to represent Canada last year as well. At the ICF Worlds in Poland. I had planned to go to Hungary the year before as well, but then just with COVID, that wasn't going to happen. And I'm excited as well this year. I qualified to represent Canada at the ISA Worlds later on this month, but I won't be going because again, just like finances and stuff, it's too much. But I will be going to the ICF Worlds in Thailand in November this year. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That's pretty cool, and maybe the Olympics in 2028. Who knows? Maybe it's gonna come. And so
that's the goal. That's the dream.
and so, from my understanding and knowing a little bit about you and what you do on the background, as as water, I feel like every water sports man and woman, like you're always working on the side, and because sponsorship could be pretty hard. And from your experience, it's also the case. What I hear is like having sponsors is hard, which I don't really understand at the same time because you're going to be on the water at an international competition. So there is like you can be viewed by a lot of people taking pictures and you can have a great result in the end. So how do you explain that in the sense that at the beginning, like you're doing your first fundraising event for your friends that passed away, and now you have the ability to compete, but it's still the same. You still have big no's. So how do you see it? Do you know why?
Oh man, that's a really great question. I think what's interesting about it is going from marketing a good cause to then marketing yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's really oddly like interesting because you'd think it would be the same, but it's definitely different because the early days of promoting On Board and promoting like a cancer fundraiser, like everybody wants to support a good cause, right? Yeah. Everybody wants to put something, put their name to something that is so feel good and is so like easy as well to promote, because most people I know of have been affected and or know somebody that has been affected by cancer, right? Like it's not a hard cause to get behind or to stand behind.
Yeah.
And especially too, like running it here in Welland, like because I had two friends too that like their names were on the event and it was dedicated to them. Yeah. Their impact in the community as well was like pretty great and pretty immense and huge.
Yeah.
But transitioning from that as I got older and then got more competitive with SUP, and now my motivations and my goals have changed. I think there's days where it's almost like sense of guilt, you know, like trying to say like I'm worthy enough and like I like you should be putting your money and your time into me so that I can go out on the water and do something that I love, you know. Like sometimes it feels like what, like why would you ask for something like that, right? Like how are you contributing to society? How are you still fulfilling like your purpose of the greater good? And you know, it's funny, like April Zilg like wrote a really good blog about kind of that feeling as an athlete of like, how do you convince people to like put their time and their energy and their money into you when what is your valuable asset, right? Like how can someone pay you to just spend time on the water and do what you want to do?
Well, I like looking at you. I would say there's multiple facets, and I think it's like looking at you or looking at someone else. I think there are multiple facets. First, that I want to see as a sponsor would be the results. Are you able to have great results? And I do think that you can. And then there is also the personality and how you react and interact with people, which there's no doubt you can. Like you're like smiling and right, you were this little shy on the beach trying to talk to two guys trying to try the paddleboard, and now here we are. So those two things are really important. And what's your backstory, where you have a huge backstory from the event to being a competitor to succeeding 1 year after another to then be on the elite. And for me, it's obvious that like I don't understand why is it so hard, because stand-up paddleboard is now, I think it's like kite surfing. It's getting there slowly, but so how do you promote yourself? For example, if we can maybe try to understand why Maddi Leblanc is struggling and should have sponsors for me. So how do you promote yourself?
Oh my gosh. Well, again, honestly, I cannot thank you enough for saying all of those very, very kind things like that. That means a lot to me, you know.
It's
like
not like for me, like I said, it's not about being kind, because being kind and being cute doesn't pay. It's about like it's just assets that you have, and so for me there is something like it's like a mystery of like you have to find the key of like why, because everything is turning green, right? Everything is green. So why can't we have access to that? So how do you market yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's interesting. Like in terms of like answering that question as straightforward as possible, it's like marketing myself. You know, I try to have a presence like online and in social media, and I love running clinics too. Like I love teaching, and so this year has been really cool. I was able to run a clinic out east in Halifax recently for a group of stand-up paddlers there at the Chima Aquatic Club. And actually in a couple of weeks, I'll be in Quebec. I'm running some downwind clinics with the Downwind Quebec crew.
That's cool.
So I think like, having a good presence like out in the community and online is what matters, and it's super important. But I think I'm learning too that like more success has come definitely with results. And for me, those results have been in terms of an effort of putting more time and dedication into my training. And putting more time into my training means less time online, less time, spending editing and photos and all that stuff that comes with it. So I think for me, this journey has always been a constant struggle of balance, of finding the right amount of time to train, the right amount of time to put into marketing yourself, because that alone is a job. But because I'm not at the highest level yet and don't have that sponsorship, I then also have to put time into part-time jobs. Like I have 3 part-time jobs right now. So then that also takes away time from marketing myself and then my training. So it's this constant struggle of balance. And I think as I continue along this journey, I figure out as literally each day goes on how to do that better. And there's still so much I can learn and take away from it. But I kid you not, there's so many days I just wake up and I'm like, man, like I look at my mom sometimes and I'm like, Mom, do you want to be like my social media manager? Because like I just can't do this. Like it's literally its own job. Like, it's so funny. So it's just finding that balance, I think, of all of those factors. Because SUP is it is a small sport, and you're right, it's still growing. It doesn't have that funding yet, and that's okay. Like I just maybe hope in my lifetime to see the day where it does have some funding, but we'll just keep working hard.
And do you have some access maybe to mentors? Like have you talked to I'm not gonna say pro athlete because you're a pro athlete, but like higher end pro athletes and how they got into how they did what they did. How did they get sponsors, and how did they went from amateur being an amateur to then struggling to get to be a professional and then to be a professional? Do you have some mentors?
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely had that conversation with a few other athletes, and it's really quite fascinating actually, because everybody's story, it's the same, but it's different, like in terms of that timeline. Like it seems to me like every single person I've talked to has gone through what I have gone through. Like they've gone through that stage of like, okay, they found the sport and they loved it, and then they started to work hard, but they had to struggle a bit. And then through that struggle, they got to where they were today. So I think what's interesting is like, I'm still in that struggle phase, but it's like, I see that light at the end of the tunnel. Like I see that goal that I have in mind and that dream that I want to live out, and that's okay. And so I think the beauty in that is now I've come to this point in my life where before I used to look at that struggle and hate it. Like I used to be like, man, I hate that. I'm so poor. I'm so broke. I hate that. Like, like this past winter, I was in California and I was like living on my friend's sailboat, just bumming it out. And there was a week where I was like so low on money. I was like, man, I literally have to choose right now between driving to a training session because that's going to cost me $50 in gas, or do I choose to spend that $50 on groceries because I need to just freaking eat this week? Like learning that struggle and that being so uncomfortable to now, like just fully actually embracing it and be like, wow, what a privilege it is actually to feel the struggle and to like try to work so damn hard for something that you want so bad that will lead to something so good at the end of the day. So I think now that I've accepted that and have like made it as part of my identity, it's helped me to be more successful. And literally I've had the most successful racing season this past summer that I've ever had in my whole entire athletic career. Like I've become the Canadian national women's champion. Like how cool is that? By embracing that struggle and like accepting and honoring the hard work and knowing that not every day is going to look perfect or be perfect, but I'm trying my best, and that's what matters.
So do you have like talking to other competitors? Do you have a time frame? Kind of like how many years did they struggle? How many years are you have you been struggling, and do you have a time frame of like, well, I'm going to try to still struggle, or maybe for like, I don't know, I'm saying something stupid, but like for like 24 months or maybe 12 months, and after that, if it doesn't work, well, then I might reconsider my goals, maybe try to push again if I still have the energy. If not, this is my backup plan. Do you have a time frame maybe?
Yeah, like, yeah, because in comparison to every other athlete, like I've talked to, that timeline looks different, and
Yeah.
everybody's stories are different.
Yeah.
So for myself personally, I think that's actually a great question, because I've never actually like told anybody this like really out loud. But
Well, that's why I'm doing that podcast. I'm interested into athletes, but I'm interested into sponsorship and all that thing, because this is the thing that I think people needs to know. As you have also younger people that they don't know all that, or they don't, and they might be interested into it. So what's your time frame, Maddi?
my time frame is sitting at like 2023 right now. I really just hope to see stand-up paddleboarding in the 2028 Olympics.
Yeah.
And if it is in the Olympics, I am training wholeheartedly, giving everything I have into that and wanting to be a part of that. And so that gives me a timeline of like roughly 5 years. So yeah, I've had like a pretty big sit down like conversation with my parents and my coaches as well, like Larry Kane. And we've just been like, okay, if this is the goal and this is the dream, this is the timeline that we have. So after that, I do like going with the flow of life and seeing where new opportunities lead and take, because every single day is like a new opportunity, and so many things pop up, like even happening, like going to California this past winter, like that wasn't expected. That was not planned. And having that just opened up a whole new world for me, and so many other doors and windows of opportunities for me. So yeah, I'm kind of like, I guess to answer the question, if I'm answering it well enough, is that my dedication and my seriousness and my focus is for the next 5 years for paddling for sure. But then after that, I just kind of want to like naturally progress and see where the sport takes me. Because I don't think I'm ever going to say there's going to be a day where I retire or paddleboarding is done. Like,
no, that's not really the question. It's more like it's good to make efforts and trying to be productive every day in reaching your dream. And but at some point, like I know that like you need to have a timeline to be like, okay, at that time I might just reconsider if I pursue, and maybe just trying to auto-evaluate what's good, what's bad, and trying to move the needle forward. And how do I move the needle forward with what I have in my plate right now? It's just that like I know that it's pushing me even in what I do every day with video and all that. I need to have a time frame. If I don't see something moving, I have to know why and how can I move forward. And if I don't move forward, well, what's the next step? Should I continue? Yeah. So that's for me, that's really important to keep the motivation up and the smile on the face.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, it's definitely a key factor in life for sure. Right.
And so we have a few minutes left. Are you interested into trying fall subboarding? Have you ever tried, and are you going to try?
Subfoiling?
Subfoiling, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know what? It does look really cool. It looks like a lot of fun. But yeah, I don't know. Like I incurred a very serious injury last year, and I've just fully kind of like recovered from it now. So a part of me is like, I do really want to try it because it speaks so much to like my fun and adventurous side, and again, very competitive in terms of like wanting to do everything and anything. But at the same time, I'm also like, I'm just a little more cautious now going through that injury and knowing like, okay, if I like hurt myself at all, then any chance of progressing my athletic career is over. So I think I will try foiling one day, but it might be after the 2028 Olympics. if
Do-
paddling gets in.
do you have insurance for your body as well? That's a good question. Like I know like soccer players, they have insurance for their legs. I don't know like if you know Cristiano Ronaldo, which is like a really really good player. He has like I'm saying a random number, but like a 5 million insurance on his left leg, and he's like insuring his own body. I imagine you don't have any insurance for your body, but just to let you know, that's the next step for you.
Okay, that's good to know, because I had no idea that was even a thing.
Yeah, it does.
That's
It
really
it does it does exist. It's taking away money for sure. So, but
That's funny.
it's quite funny. Well, do you have maybe something that you want to add? Your favorite drinks or something else?
Oh man. Well, I guess usually like I always like to shout out and thank like all of my sponsors and my friends and my family who do support this crazy athletic career that I am trying to pursue. And you know, like being 26 years old, you know, like I'm not old, but I'm not young either, you know. So the fact that people still like inspire me and still believe in me as well, as much as I believe in myself, to pursue something that is funny, because like paddling in the Olympics isn't even like a thing yet, right? Like, so I'm chasing this dream that doesn't even technically exist yet. And so all of those people who just keep telling me to keep going and really support me in any possible way that they can, like, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of those people, and those people being like the ones that let me sleep on their couch when I travel, the ones that pay for my breakfast when we go out the next day or something after a hard training session, or like the people that allow me to borrow equipment and their boards and their surfboards, and the people who just welcome me with open arms into their community. And like, I cannot thank all of those people enough, because there's too many of them to even count. Like, and those people, I think, too, are what make this community so special. And so I just, I'm always super grateful for everyone and everything that has gotten me to where I am today, because this is definitely not an individual sport. You know, I think people think SUP is, because you are out there all by yourself on your paddleboard, but there's a million people that are behind you.
And it's very important to have that in mind. It's not the easiest thing on earth to, because you're alone on your paddleboard, but you have to remind everyone on the beach looking at you, and that's great. Well, thank you very much for this nice open-heart conversation about your story, about the sponsorship aspect of it, and your timeline and your different goals for the Olympics. I think that we all wish you the best, and that we hope that the stand-up paddleboard is going to be in the Olympics. There's some competition with like surf also that could come. So yeah, I really wish you all the best. Of course, we keep in touch for secret project, and we talk very very soon.
Honestly, well, merci beaucoup, Maxime. It honestly, again, it means the world to me that you've given me this platform today to speak and to share my story, and whoever hears it, I hope takes something away from it. So it means a lot to me. So thank you very much.
Well, see you soon.
We'll see you soon.